Good morning, afternoon, evening, or night. We're back again, and I'm happy for you to join us. Tonight, I'd like to be going into some life experiences and speaking from my experience, I think that starting off with a really interesting jump into the fact that, you know, early on I wasn't really bothered or occupied with relationships. I'm I'm the youngest of three brothers. So, I got to live vicariously. I was fortunate enough with that, and I got to really learn from my two older brothers and just see really what not I should be getting myself involved in. And you get to see a lot of different stuff, and and it really kind of led me away from going too far with things, because you could maybe see how that happened in one of your other brothers' experience. So I was fortunate enough with that. But nowadays with social media, as much as it might suck or whatever you might feel not having brothers or sisters, I think that you can still, if you look for it, you can find that in the right places, hopefully, and don't be led astray. But yeah, I mean, even though I had my brothers to look to, and it made some things easier, I think that when you're the last child, especially like with three, kind of a common number, I think in some ways you have your own challenges, because you get a lot of stuff like just kind of handed down to you, and your parents are kind of, they've gone through the ringer already. I mean, I can't imagine if you're more than three down the line, like it kind of just gets worse in that sense. But who knows? Because then there's times where that like kind of picks back up. Parents get interest again. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know. In my experience, just talking from my own experience here, and yeah, there's things that you should be compensating for in that way, where you're kind of getting certain things easy, and whatever that might be in life, because the difficult things are what are going to make you just a tougher person. And trust me, just experiencing that and getting through it, you will figure it out. Just having the patience and the endurance, whatever characteristic that allows you to survive longer, as a proper creature of this earth, we forget that we're animals, and we have to stay grounded in those fundamentals, where it's like you can make it. The only time something in nature does not succeed is when it pretty much fails physically, because of a physical limitation on it, or the fact that it was overcome by just a better adversary. But for the most part, it's surviving if it is competent and doing everything that it can within its power. So you have to remember that, you know, let's go back because I can get sidetracked. Let's build this up. So, when I was younger, I would have always considered myself like a full-blown loser to what I expected and wanted of myself. I definitely considered myself a loser. I think my whole life, my harshest critic is myself, which is why I've always defaulted to comedy as something. And it wasn't like, that I sought that out in the sense of, oh, I need to, you know, acquire this mechanism to, compensate for the fact that I'm pretty much been overweight since I'm like 13 years old. Prior to that, the opposite. I was running around athletic, looked great as a kid, made no sense. No reason to look that good as a kid. I was just attracting unwanted attention, especially the environment we're in nowadays. I would have been like prime target. prime target. I got like a mushroom haircut, looked like a giant penis tip walking around. Like I was just no good. That's why, thank God. Anyway, so yeah, it's just, I had fluctuations in my life, but I always adapted. I always just I knew how to fit in, and there were times where I was on the receiving end. Like not only was I overweight, my ass was enormous. I think there's that dude on Instagram. He's everywhere, man. Like you see him in the UFC. That dude with the khakis, shorts, tan khakis, got like a huge ass. That was me. If I did the workouts that guy is doing, that would be me. And even right now, like if I would have worked that thing out, like I'm still rocking like an enormous junk in my trunk. I don't know what it is. My dad claims, anyway. So Frankie LaPena, I think is his name. Yeah, that guy. So anyway, I had my downfalls for sure, but I always tried to I don't know, just stay relevant in that way. And I always just looked things up, stayed relevant, and I don't know, maybe it was part of who I was that I tended to find interesting movies, and I tended to, yeah, attract unwanted attention at the time. And, whatever it might be, the best thing is to always just not go too far and stay balanced with things where, there's going to be those kids that are getting in trouble and everything, but you don't need to do everything that those kids are doing. Like you could be in that crowd for a little bit. You could maybe hang out once in a while. I think it's good to experience things, especially, with the maturing mind and knowing your boundaries, and that's kind of what you got to test. And you really need to retreat. You need to like go a little bit over a boundary and then retreat, because if you don't, that's where you're going to do harm to yourself, either or others, whether directly or indirectly. And it's something that you might not be able to backtrack from, which, especially at an early stage in life, you really don't want to do those types of things, especially land in prison, or again, like I said, where you end up harming somebody else. But point being here, I think that, in some way you can compensate. At the very least, if your thing is not that you're a social person, you know, I didn't really do much to be social in school. I kind of just did my own thing. I've always done that my whole life, where I just kind of did my own thing. When I was in school, for me, it was a little bit easier. I just learn. I'm an audible learner, auditory learner, and I can kind of just pick a lot of those things up by just listening to them, taking a glance here and there. A lot of this stuff I always pursued on my own, whether I was reading books or on the internet. So again, I mean, I have the advantages, or things that have worked for me, the traits and the proclivities I've had. But again, when I was younger, always working with my hands, so I've always had a little bit of everything going on. And you know, again, I was not in with the ladies, when it came to anything romantic. That's the strangest thing, because my best friends and my closest friends growing up, a lot of them were women. I had a best friend for a long time, won't name names here, and that relationship lasted for like 7 years. But I got friend zoned, you know, and honestly, I was like a pussy in that way, where I didn't understand things. And you're trying to just, like, I was always just trying to be real, in the sense that, like, maybe you showing so much interest and like and help would get you in the door. And let me just say, friends, that will not work for you. Never. Unless it's just some rare turn. It can be a rare turn where that happens for you, especially at a young age, because things don't work really as they should. But when you're trying to go for people above your league, let's just say that, I've always shot for people above my league. Maybe that's just a part of me that likes a challenge, because I think I've always done that with myself as well. When I do put myself to something, I'm gonna do it the best of my ability, and if I'm good with it, then why not make it a little extra difficult? So again, not that I was good with any of this shit, but I had close girlfriends for a while. So knowing how to talk to women, or at least being on the side that I'm understanding like how they're working and everything like that, it really helped to catch me up, at least in that aspect, which I didn't know at the time. Again, loser over here getting friend zoned, pretty much gave up on that. And then in my high school years, it was like, if something happens, let it happen, but I'm not going to chase it, because then I'm going to feel like even more of a loser. And I had my opportunities, and I like to blame myself that I have bad luck. But to be honest, you know, luck is really preparation and opportunity meeting. You have to be prepared for when an opportunity arises. Otherwise, will you can so easily blame that on bad luck, good luck, because oh yeah, she didn't say anything to me. Doesn't matter, or whatever the situation might be, that something happened to somebody and oh, you didn't do anything and coulda, woulda, shoulda. At the end of the day, being prepared for this stuff is gonna help a lot. So at the time, you think you're prepared, and you can be, but the biggest thing is acting. Biggest thing is acting, because especially with relationships, trust me, when you're young, you don't know a thing. As much as you think you know, and trust me, you do know a lot. It's just that you can always know more. So the fact that you just got to throw yourself into these things, because the faster you experience this stuff, the better you're going to learn how to deal with it and how to just confront whatever it might be that you have to do. And that is really what, like, getting through that growing up phase of your life is about, for sure. Is just throwing yourself into things when you do not feel like you're ready for that, because ultimately that's what I did as a nerd, as a loser, is that I let myself experience quite a bit. And as much as I was a loser, I ended up fitting in what you would deem as the cool kids, and things like that. So, and going out with these kids. And then also, I would hang out with what people would consider like, the dude that's nobody hangs out with and anything like that. Like, I would like to get on both sides of these like perspectives in a way. And then, there were kids I had that were like me, and turns out they weren't. You go to their house, they're living quite differently from you, whether it might be the cultural or ethnic way of religious, this and that. So, New York City in that way is amazing for that, because there's people with like a billion different backgrounds here. And yeah, just give me a second. So, um, yeah, overcoming being like a loser in your own mind is just not portraying that, really, because there were definitely times in that, what I would consider like, not being the best of my ability at that time when I was younger, and just kind of going with the flow of things. I really didn't push myself too much in school. I didn't really have to. So that was, only with math and certain things that were like required a lot of um remembering and like burning in formulas and certain, whatever it might be, like graphs or certain things that you have to remember, certain specific things. That's the only thing where, I had to study a lot and everything. So, you know, I tried to start branching out after high school because I didn't take any of those opportunities with my relationships. And you know I had realized after high school that not going to college, that's a whole different story, but I didn't go to college. I wanted to take a year off, and that pretty much, within that year after high school, I heard so many stories from friends about them switching their majors within a year and spending all this money. And basically they still sounded indecisive. There was a lot of things, and I can blame them all I want, but at the end of the day, I was super indecisive about what I wanted to do. And again, New York City, tons of money for this shit. Even like the cheapest community college, it's still costing a lot of money. And being the last child, my parents, not too much money left in the bank here, which literally zero. So, we could have taken loans, did that, but I don't want that fire under my ass and that debt for something that I was so indecisive about, which I think a lot of people should really think about if you're thinking about school. Because to this day, I have a much better idea about what I want to go to school for. But maybe I should have went for one of the few things that I know were top interest of mine and just did it. But that's, again, it's a whole nother story. I didn't do it. I still didn't go to college. I would love to, but we're getting around to that. Want to have a kid soon. We'll see. That's probably, again, I'd love to do it. Let's stay with that in mind. Now, you know, getting into work and everything like that, that's really how, you get social again, because not going to school, back to college or anything like that. And I was always kind of more secluded. I was social when I was in that situation. Again, it's like, I've been in situations where I go to dances, like young, type of dances. You're 10 years old or whatever, and it's like a Catholic thing, and everybody's just there with like a DJ with the lights on type of thing. So yeah, even though, trust me, I guess, right, I've told people about like that stuff, that there were like these Catholic dances. But anyway, we have a lot of churches in the neighborhood. There really is no stories of anything like that happening. And yeah, well, at least when I was younger, not a thing that I knew about, nothing with me. But it is awfully suspicious now that I think about it, right? It is really crazy. They had these dances, private dances, at these private Catholic, they could be elementary, middle schools. I don't know that the high schools do them, but that makes sense, right? But as like as middle schoolers, yeah, what am I talking about? Everything is not always like pedophilia, right? We gotta we gotta keep it, yeah, 100 over here. Sometimes everything's not a joke, but yeah. So there were times where I was at the dances, like parts of my life, really the early part, where I was going to those dances and I was in the corner. I was on the side. I wasn't dancing with nobody. I was wishing I could do that stuff, this and that. Make of life what you really can, because you're not gonna think back on that in a fond way. A lot of these things, it's like, if you're not gonna hurt yourself, trust me, just give it a shot. And I'm saying physically hurt, because trust me, as humans, we can survive so much. You have no idea. Like, there are people, and you as a person can go to limits that you would never think of. The thing is that it's really one day at a time. And for some people, you got a hailstorm coming tomorrow and you have no idea. So some people got it a lot worse than others, but for the most part, again, go back to the first thing I said: endure, be patient in that aspect, that things will clear. Not to say that they will immediately get better, but you will start to understand and see a path forward regardless of the difficulties. You just have to really sometimes Like, stop panicking. You have to just like take it easy. So back to my story again is that, you know, I threw myself into a lot of stuff at work for the most part. And I tried to explore different opportunities. And it took me into cooking. And I ended up going from basically being like a total, not really a prude. I wanted to do stuff, but you know, somebody that like I didn't do shit with nobody for a long fucking time. And then all of a sudden, I'm 25 years old and I'm dating a 50-year-old. So it was some crazy shit. And she was married, and Jesus Christ, she's seeing another guy as well. And I didn't know about this, but I find out while I'm seeing her, and she's cheating on her husband for me. And there's another guy that's like, I don't know, he's probably in his 40s or some shit. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I find that out, and then we end up not working together, and things kind of fall off. But she was in love with me. I thought I was in love with her. And, you know, I'm kind of like going crazy over this lady in some ways, because in the other part of me, I always fully understood, like, I can't be with this lady regardless, you know, of how I feel and whatever happens between us. Like, I can't have a life with this woman, you know? So, you know, but I learned a lot of things. I got to catch up, and I got to, like, you know, whoop, fucking level up in a lot of different ways, but it still was kind of a miserable thing emotionally, you know. It was still like she was a pretty harsh woman, and the things that happened, you know, like again, there were some pleasant things obviously, but not really, nothing to write home about other than maybe a story at some point with a lot more details going on. And so that caught me up where it was like, forget it, I can't be defeated, because prior to this, I was actually, you know, with this whole social media and everybody on Tinder and Plenty of Fish and all these things, like I gave it a shot. Tinder, mad zone, and people, honestly, I just feel like, I don't know. You gotta be like, Tinder is super mainstream, and I'm not like mainstream like that. So it's like, if we're gonna vibe, you know, I'm just gonna be me and you're gonna be you, and either you're gonna like it, and that's pretty much what happened. Where, you know, I learned a lot knowing from random people what I didn't want, you know, and it wasn't anything about like politics or some shit like that. That's why I think people, which that happened to me in reverse, where people, because of, it wasn't even anything political, I said, it's like people like to attach ideas to politics, and it's like, just because of the fact that I said that somebody wouldn't get deported because they had a green card, they assumed I was somebody of a certain political background. And it's like, I'm just saying a fact right here, that if you have a green card, you're legally here. Like, nobody can deport you. You're, first of all, even if you are illegal in this country, in the United States of America, let's clarify, you still have rights. So yeah, I mean, again, if you're a criminal for whatever reason it might be, but at the very least you have rights. So back again, rewind. Now, you know, I caught up with a lot of stuff. Really, in work, that's where it's not good, guys. I'm not telling you right now, it's not good to have work relationships, because 100%, it just, it's not gonna work out well unless like you're taking that outside of it, and like literally you both are not gonna work there anymore. Like, plan on that, because that's what's gonna happen regardless. Because it's like, in one way or the other, some way, you're both you're both staying together, and things, and they're either anyway. So, um, other things happen. You learn, you keep learning. You gotta put yourself in these situations. And there was another woman that, good God, I like the older women. The thing is, with older women, and young guys, I'm telling you right now, you be smart about it, and it's gonna work out. Especially if you're one of the guys that's always been a nice guy. I'm telling you right now, go for the older women, man. And here's my thing, right? All right, I respect people's marriages. Saying this, and then what I'm about to say, I might have to, like, might have to not say that. But let's just say, if the woman is willing to cheat on her husband, I mean, you that's where I mean that's where it's fair game. I'm sorry. And those people who, like, let's say I'm cheating on my wife, right? And then my wife goes after the woman who I'm cheating with, or at least let's just say that she is primarily mad at the woman instead of me and my behavior. That's something that, it's not productive. I think in a way it's just possessive behavior. But anyway, now I'm losing my point. There's almost no reason for me to even go into this. So, yeah, this other woman who was she was in her middle ages, and she had a kid. She was very religious. That was super strange, because I would talk to this woman, and she would be blasting Christian rock music, like, while I was talking to her. And then she was, like, flabbergasted when I'm telling her why I want her to lower the volume of that, you know? And sure, we can vibe out to that a little bit, but I'm talking, you're talking. Why the hell is the music so loud? So, people, again, they conflate, like, you objectively saying or doing something into, like, other stuff. And it's like, why are we complicating everything like that as human beings? Let's keep things on a 1-to-1 ratio, where we assume the best, and not always, like, jump to the worst thing with at least with sane people who seem sane and, like, mostly cognitively sound. I think we should, levy a degree of restraint when it comes to our inner thoughts and stuff like that. I think we should just weave think for a second and weave that shit into maybe a little bit more of an eloquent way of addressing the situation. So, back to, what you can really be doing with women. And I think that, for the most part, just kind of taking your time and being patient. um with the social media stuff, the apps and everything, that's kind of a whole different thing. If you're not pressing to talk to one of those people, like, within the first day or two, you know I don't think there's a reason to really be going back and forth like crazy like that. I mean, you don't even know who you could be talking to if it's just a text message thing. That's, like, back in the 90s type of shit that, on the internet. Like, it's not, don't take anything serious if you just, like, text messaging back and forth, because trust me, I've been in AOL chat rooms back in the day. There were a lot of predators going on in that shit. And who know, I was probably talking to like 20 of them. I don't even know, man. Who the fuck knows? These crazy people, this shit is nuts. I'm insane, you know. As a teenager, I dabbled quite a bit. So I dipped my toes into a lot of different things, you know what I mean? You gotta you gotta really temper yourself that way, where you feel it out. You know, I don't know, sometimes you go for a dive, but ultimately you got to get the fuck out and reassess the whole thing and be like, yo, do I want to go back in that water at all? Do I want to just dip my toes? But you got to keep things balanced. Again, in all aspects, just keep it balanced with with everything you're going to do. You got to remember that, like, going overboard with pretty much anything is no good. You got to you got to keep a level head, patience, and even though it takes a long time to find somebody for those people, I think that you have to stay true to yourself for sure. Because if you end up changing and becoming something you're not, you're just going to attract things that don't belong to you and you don't really want. They will not make you happy. You're not going to find happiness like that. I think the best thing is to just pay attention to what you don't like. When you're somebody that likes a lot of shit, pay attention to what you don't like, because it really helps to narrow that focus with women for sure, or you know, even the inverse for women. I think that with guys, the problem is that being weak in some way is a huge vulnerability for a man to expose. And I really think it's important for women to keep their guard up. Like, the more serious you're trying to be about a relationship and you know, it's something serious, you have to be serious about, like, keeping your guard up. Yeah, you can be funny, you know, you could joke around with people or guys specifically, but I think that, you know, a real man and a chivalrous man will be patient, and he's gonna like find a smooth way in. You know what I mean? Like that knight doesn't show up with an army, at least you know, most of the time, unless you got the power of the Lannisters behind you or something like that, and the coin. But you know, for the most part, you're showing up at that castle gate, and like, you know, you got like a letter. I have a letter from the dean of Duke, and he says that there's a shortage in your town, you know. And like, you come there, you got grain stores that you're willing to share, and then, you know, this, they let you in, you do what you gotta do, you say, hey, where's the princess? I want to, you know, talk about this new fountain plan that I had for the town. And then, you know, you just like, you smooth talk your way through things. Either that, you know, but you find a way, you know what I'm saying? You do something. You do something to get to the other side of that fucking gate. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't just stop and say no. Like, there's an impediment in front of me. You know what I mean? You might have to process, reassess, and then just kind of get into it. But take a moment, bow, you know, and hope that you can bring back the ideas of the past. But unfortunately, they do escape us. So for the most part, still trying to get at the fact here that, you know, you can do a lot with a very little sometimes. And so sorry about that. Get lost, shotgun thoughts, baby. But you know, that brings us back to you know, the chivalry. You really gotta you got to just man up sometimes, and whether or not you get the outcome you desire, it's only going to bring you one step closer to attaining that, for sure. And I wouldn't have been able to have the character to have met my wife and gone through that entire process, because marriage, I think, is one of the most difficult but also one of the most bountiful things that you can engage in, because it's really a social contract between you and somebody else. And you have to really give your all and your trust to do that. And and, and it requires a feeling, a certain feeling that this person evokes in you, and a lot of the times it can be indescribable. But I really feel like love is when you live without, and you live without without like that concern of, what am I going to do? And you really cannot explain it, but you live without that emptiness, that hole that you have. And it's not, I mean, it could, that's why people mistake infatuation and a lot of things for love. But it's quite a profound feeling that I think takes you over, and you have to be experienced to really know that. You have to be experienced with what you don't want, for sure, because you can very easily think in a situation that you are in love and that it is something that you should stick with, you know and of course, over time, maybe the way you feel might change. Even for me, let's say I don't even want to say that, but let's just say, there are plenty of people who've been in love for a long time, and it's genuine, but things just don't work out, And in that case, it can go many different ways, but ultimately, that's not the point we're getting at here. The thing is that you have to give it a chance, for sure, and I think trying to seek it out only makes it something less achievable and harder to attain. You really got to kick back and allow who you are to really shine and come through, because you're just not going to match up. You're not going to really, it's going to be something temperamental. It won't be long lasting. It won't be that that give and take that really propels you to that everlasting relationship, or just that sustainable companionship. Because for different people, love can be different things, and it definitely emphasizes different things for different people you know and a lot of it is balance. I've realized that, especially with parents that tough it out, there's a lot in that the parents might not be able to see it, but they complement each other dramatically. And that is the reason they are together, because there's like a dramatic complement that they bring to each of each other's lives. And yeah, that's why having that disconnect between people in a relationship, it can make it, honestly, like, bring people to those extremes where instead of them both complementing each other and balancing each other out, you know, they kind of go to their sides over time. And that's where that divide in the middle comes from, is because these people are not willing to exchange in a fair way anymore. And it's not that give and a take. Marriage and life and every day is compromise, and there's not enough time, there's not enough anything, you know there's not enough it's not enough anything, really. We got to make that happen. It's the human spirit that carries us through the day to another day. We got to thank whatever you might believe in. I like to do my motto. I thank God for every day. I thank God for another day. And that's as simple as I keep it. I like to give my thanks. And I used to be an atheist, and then shortly after, once I realized that, a little silly to not be believing in anything, how can I assert such a profound claim that there is nothing, you know? I don't know that. Neither do I know nor not know that there's something. So, that brought me to being agnostic. And then through agnosticism, you kind of have an open mind to many different spiritualities and faiths, and I think it's best to intermingle and pick really valuable lessons from a multitude of sources and kind of create a very strong spiritual backing, whatever works for you, because at this day and age, we need that spirituality. Religion might be a tool of man to control, but spirituality is a gift from something greater than us to empower and, really get us through those things, because life can be tough. And we need that that ethereal, you know goal. We need that light, that something, that fire, whatever it might be, to pick us up and carry us on. And that's always there for us. And I'll always be here for you guys. And I appreciate you listening. We're going to end this here. Thank you very much. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, everybody.